All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is our Free Resource Friday. We're doing this once a month. It's a 30-minute webinar where you can find out practical information about free community resources, and we're hosting a different program each month. So today we have Christina with us with Allies for Children. Just as a reminder, a couple things to go over for what you signed up for. Again, this is monthly. Sessions are 30 minutes. We do record them, so I'll upload this to YouTube. I'll also share it out on Facebook. Anybody is welcome to attend. You can be a Head Start program. You can be a community member, a parent. Anybody is welcome to join. We use the same Zoom link each month. So if you're here today, you're signed up and you'll get notifications for each of the next sessions. The date will be updated every time for the same link. And then during the session, we encourage your cameras to be on and microphones ready to share out. If you have anything that you want to share or ask questions, and then use the chat when appropriate. So I'll pass it over to Christina. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thanks, Brandy. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Thanks for having me today. Hope everyone is getting some sunshine today. I know in Pittsburgh it's been quite gloomy all week, and we're finally getting a breakthrough of the clouds. So, yay for that. But yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm from an organization called Allies for Children. We are Allegheny County based, but we do statewide policy and advocacy work. And I'm going to share some slides. Right now. So give me a second to do that. Okay. Can you see my slides? I have it in presenter view, so
So we see presenter mode.
you do. Okay. We'll just not worry about that then. Don't know why that always does that. Okay.
It
Start
works
again.
well when it works right.
Yes. Okay. Um, okay, now are we just seeing the slides?
I don't think you're sharing quite yet.
Okay. You know what? Maybe it closed out of the sharing. So let me just start over here. Okay. Okay. Is that better?
Loading. Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, well, then we can get started. So, again, good afternoon with Allies for Children, and we do policy and advocacy work. Hopefully, it will let me advance my slides. Okay, great. So, here's just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I would love to know more about, where you all are from, if you have a chance to put your name and where you work out of, what county or city you're in. Would be great to know about you all a little bit. So if you have a chance to put that in the chat, that'd be wonderful. Um, Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about my organization and what we do. I'll talk about the kind of some of the statewide advocacy that we do through Thriving PA for folks who don't know, and then I'll kind of go through some engagement opportunities at the end. So again, this is just a little bit about what we do. So we work toward policy and practice changes that improve the well-being of all children in Allegheny County, but also statewide throughout Pennsylvania. And through the work that we do quite a bit of work in the health policy space. So my work focuses a lot on things like child nutrition, Medicaid. I do some work advocating for home visiting. So a lot of different areas for me, but then also my colleague Heather, she focuses a lot on child welfare, specifically in Allegheny County. We do a lot of work in the youth mental health space. So we're kind of all across the board in child issues where kind of like where we see opportunity to improve things for kids. So one of the things that I wanted to mention today as, something looking forward for us is that we're looking quite a bit from Allies for Children at ways that we can kind of mitigate the potential harms of the changes to Medicaid and Penny, or the ACA marketplace, as well as SNAP. This would also, it doesn't directly impact WIC, but the folks that participate in these programs, as I'm sure you're aware, often there's a lot of overlap. So we also do want to look at how it's potentially impacting WIC. But I think our main goal really, and what I wanted to share with you at the start today, is that we want to make sure that providers have all the information that they need to communicate with families. And so I think, Head Start and early Head Start programs are going to be like one of those kind of trusted communication platforms for families. So we want to make sure that you all have what you need to be clear with families about changes if they ask you. So one of the things we've been developing, which you'll have the slides and you can check out the link if you're interested. We started doing a Medicaid toolkit that will have several kind of sections to it. We put out an introduction that just kind of is like, hey, are you interested in what Medicaid is? And then it'll go all the way to like, what are these changes going to be and how will it impact families? So although many of the families that you work with will not be impacted directly by these changes, our fear is really that miscommunications and kind of administrative barriers are going to be the things that could potentially get families kicked off of Medicaid or, get missed in a transition from Medicaid to CHIP, for example, for a little one. So just again, that kind of like clear communication, making sure families have the information they need to make the best decision for themselves and their families. One of the ways you can engage with this is honestly just by emailing me. You'll have my email at the end, and then I'll also share an advocacy survey that you could participate in if you want to kind of dig a little deeper. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Thriving PA. So I'm sure many of you are familiar. PHSA is, involved in a lot of the Thriving PA campaigns. So, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that you've heard this before. So I'll try to keep it brief. But we do, a lot of work in the perinatal health kind of space in Thriving PA. There's also a larger kind of advocacy umbrella called Early Learning PA, which you might be familiar with, that includes like Start Strong and Pre-K for PA. But Thriving PA really is that like healthy development side of things. And that's where I lead the child nutrition piece. I mentioned like some of my WIC advocacy earlier. And some of you may have kind of already heard my spiel on this. So like I said, I'll try to keep it relatively brief. But we are developing a new fact sheet, and this is what it's going to look like. So you're getting kind of a preview of it, but this is basically the type of work that we do. So it's like educate, advocate, and collaborate, really kind of summarizes our work. We do a lot of work in the Medicaid and CHIP space, as I already mentioned, the work that we do at Allies, but of course we do it statewide with, a lot of others that are interested in this space. We want to, increase awareness about the benefits of WIC and really, make sure that families have access to WIC. So kind of like reduce those barriers to participation. We also, advocate for evidence-based home visiting, as I mentioned before. There's a lot of kind of like different collaborations that we need to kind of elevate those issues. And of course, doing like some of that direct like policymaker type of advocacy. And then, working with those in the field, working with state officials, all of those things that are like cross systems that really need to, be there to make sure that these policies either stay the same for families or improve for families. So you'll have that, and I'm happy to share the fact sheet when we finalize it, but that kind of gives you a sense of what we do with Thriving PA overall. Just very briefly again with Thriving PA and WIC, we have a statewide group, as I mentioned. We meet quarterly. Anyone here is welcome to email me to get on that list if you're interested. Doors always open to just talk about WIC if it's something you want to have like a one-on-one conversation. Again, quarterly meetings, we have put together reports in the past about like what are the strengths, barriers, and opportunities for participants to kind of share their feedback about WIC. Every year, we also kind of like submit feedback on the state plan. The Pennsylvania WIC puts their state plan forward, and we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to kind of comment on that and make sure that things are moving in the right direction with WIC. For folks who are like data nerds, we have a data work group where we work directly with PA DOH, the Department of Health, and kind of talk through what is their data sharing like. How can that help improve things for WIC? How can that help improve things for families? And we have developed fact sheets, based on some of that work that you'll have the link to here. Again, I already mentioned the meetings, and then I'll share the fact sheet when we finalize it. But what the WIC work looks like is, WIC is a federally funded program. So there is some federal advocacy that we need to do to ensure that funding continues. But a lot of it really is digging in on the state level, talking to, PA WIC, talking to the local agency directors. How can we help support WIC to work better for families? I had a conversation with some of you last year about, does the referral process look like between WIC and Head Start programs? And it seems like for the most part, your feedback was that it works pretty well. In some other areas, there are challenges and opportunities for improvement. So that's just something that like we really look at as like, how can we make this system that supports families more robust and like easier for families to access? And messengers like yourselves are really key throughout that process. So that's another thing that we work on quite a bit. Healthcare providers is another group that we work with quite a bit to see like what's that referral process look like. But again, if you're interested in engaging at all or just being on the emails that I send out like ways to engage with WIC. You can email me and I'm happy to add you to the list if you're not already there. And you can kind of stay up to date and join our meetings if your schedule allows. This is just a little bit about what our policy priorities are. I won't read through every one, but just so you kind of have an idea of like what we're working toward. So, we obviously want to increase awareness about WIC, but then also advocate for improvements in WIC. So how can we like kind of streamline the application process for families? As I'm sure you know, this is not an easy application for families to do. So any ways that we can make that better and make sure that WIC has that like IT support that they need to make those changes is really key. Strengthening the WIC workforce is also a huge one. Like you might see some turnover at the WIC programs that you interact with. How can we, make that more robust so that there is less turnover? And then, of course, as I'm sure you know, WIC, they have to go in person every 3 months to get the benefits on their card. So we're hoping to transition to being an online state where that just kind of automatically goes on their card. That is a 5-year process, so it's taking a super long time. But thankfully, we're almost at the end of the 5 years. So next year, toward maybe like fall, it sounds like August or September, they hope to be online. Another thing that I think is super important that's not on here specifically, but you may know that WIC is transitioning to new food packages. And so communicating that with families is really important. I do have a flyer from from one of the WIC local agencies I can share with you all just to make sure that you have that information. And if that would be helpful. So just again, making sure that you all have the materials that you need to share with families is really like one of our big goals as, advocates. It's not just about talking to policymakers. It's about, again, like collaborating and making sure the systems work well for families. And then, thinking about how you can stay involved, I will make sure you, again, have these slides and have the links to things. But I really would love you all to take, we have an advocacy survey that we've put together. There's a QR code for it on my last slide. But it's basically, if you're interested in advocacy, how would you like to engage? So do you just want to like get our newsletters where we talk about these different policy issues? Is that like what you have time for right now? Or would you want to like go to meetings with us to advocate for your program? So we just kind of want to know from folks in the community that serve families, how can we help you the best? So this is it should only take like a minute or two. It's not super long. Just learning more, gauging people's advocacy interests. Helping educate the policymakers is, an option, but again, there are so many options in between. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, things like, again, newsletters, participating in advocacy alerts, making phone calls. We kind of want to know where folks are at and will engage with you directly so that we can learn more about it. But this kind of just gives us a sense of what people are feeling and thinking right now. Again, you could check out our Medicaid toolkit as it rolls out if you're interested in that. There will be a section at the end of the toolkit where it's going to talk specifically to like the advocacy actions that you can take. So if you're not like super interested in talking one-on-one about what your advocacy interests are, that's somewhere where you can just kind of like keep an eye out. Um, One way to see the different sections as they come out is by signing up for our newsletter, which I have a link to here. So again, there's lots of ways you can engage with us. One thing that I also wanted to mention too is like if you're interested in me giving a presentation like this to your staff, I'm happy to do that as well if you think it would be helpful. So please invite me to present. I can do a modified version of this. I can, kind of do an advocacy 101 if that would be helpful. There's a lot of different things that we can do. Another one is like storytelling. How do you share your story with legislators? So if there's anything you think would be helpful from an advocacy perspective for your staff, please send me an email because that's what we're here for, and I'd love to do something like that. And you'll have my email. You could do that. Again, the newsletter. So we post blogs, and then we also put together a newsletter once a month or so to kind of like summarize all the different blogs that we posted on different issues. So I'll write about WIC and like what's happening in WIC policy. My other colleague will write about what's happening in the child welfare space or an event or conference that she went to. So they're just kind of like advocacy updates. So if you're just kind of interested in getting those, that's a super easy thing that you can do. You can always follow us on social media, of course, and you'll kind of get updates that way if that's what you prefer. I definitely, encourage you to check out Thriving PA's site if you haven't yet. I talked a little bit about some of the other work in Thriving PA, but like if WIC is not an area of interest, but you're interested in some of the other work, please let us know, and I'm happy to connect you with those other areas. And we also have social media with Thriving, so you can check out that as well. Another thing is just to utilize our fact sheets. If you want to check out our WIC fact sheets, we have them they're all kind of county based. So you can check out what WIC participation looks like in your county. You can kind of see like, okay, does this match what I think about WIC participation or not? So definitely feel free. We're also always welcome feedback on those types of things. So if you have thoughts on them, please definitely share. I also shared a link to, we have a fact sheet with WIC it's a healthcare provider's guide to WIC. And that's something where it's, you may be interested in sharing it and you're welcome to, but I also wanted to share it because it's something where we can kind of modify it. So like if you think, a Head Start provider's guide to WIC would be helpful, that's something where we could tweak it, pretty easily and make it available to you all as well. So I just wanted to share that so that, please contact me if you think that would be helpful. I'd love to work with you on that. And then, of course, I mentioned you can email me, get some mailing list updates, work group updates, and just kind of stay up to date on WIC advocacy. I know I went through that kind of fast, so I'm just going to pause and see if folks have questions for me. But putting up the slide that you can participate in the advocacy survey if you want to, so we can leave that up for a minute while we kind of like pause for questions. And then, of course, you'll have my contact information as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Christina. I definitely welcome questions. There were some questions around all of the links in your slides, and I just emphasize you'll send that to me and I will get that out to everybody later today.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. There's lots of links, so we won't leave you hanging. Thanks for your interest in those. And yeah, you'll definitely have access to that. And if you have any questions after you get a chance to look at stuff, definitely again, email me. Don't be shy about that. Like that's my job, right? So so please reach out. I'm always happy to hear from you and have conversation about whatever it is that jumps out at you when you do get a chance to take a look at things.
Fantastic. So I'll pause one more time. Oh, when will WIC allow parents to buy organic?
So the WIC food package, I'm trying to remember if that was part of the new WIC food package. I'd actually have to check. If it wasn't part of the new WIC food package, the soonest that it would come up would be like they do a review of the food packages every 10 years. So it wouldn't be for a while. I do think that they might have added that into the most recent food package, but I cannot remember off the top of my head. So when I share the slides, I'll definitely make sure that everyone has access to the new WIC food package kind of fact sheet, which should outline that. But
Yeah, that would be great.
it's definitely going to be a lot more flexible. I think families are really going to be happy with the changes. It offers way more flexibilities than it did before. It's much more like culturally aware and more flexible in that sense. So I do think you're going to be happy with the changes. Families will be happy with the changes. Is it exactly what we all want? Maybe not, but I do think it is a step in the right direction. So that's good stuff, I think.
Thank you. Great question.
Yeah.
Frankie shared, love the idea of collaboration and advocacy between WIC and Beaver County Head Start. It's important, especially to know of the changes so we can tell parents.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, great comment. I think it's really important for everyone to just have all the information. Like sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? And oftentimes, you're so busy with your own work that it's hard.
Oop, did I pause or did Christina pause? Christina paused. Okay, just give her a second. If anybody else is thinking of other questions.
Anything else?
Oh, there you are. Sorry, you paused for a little bit.
Oh, I did. You know what? I got a thing that my network was unstable, so.
No worries. All right, I don't see other questions coming in, so I'm going to pause the recording, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, Christina, for joining us. Your work is amazing. Tons of advocacy, which is so important, especially for direct service when we can't always be there and doing that work. So we thank you for your time and thank you for all your effort.